Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max have been out for a week and a half or so, and apparently there's some early issues that people are experiencing. Also, the October Apple event may not be an event at all. We'll talk about this and more in this week's news update for the week of September 26th, 2022. Now, AirPods Pro 2 have been out for a few days, and some users are experiencing or reporting that they have a lack of audio when it's actually connected. So you may already have the device connected to your phone, and it's not working properly. You're playing music, and then the audio would stop. Now, I am curious if they're updated on the firmware version that's current, because there is a current firmware update compared to when you purchased them. There was a day one update, and you'll see here, if we scroll down, we have 5A377. That's the most recent update. You want to make sure that you're on that. And if they're not updated, you can just plug them in, set them next to your phone, and then wait for them to update. They can update overnight, and that may resolve that issue. If it doesn't, let me know in the comments below. Now, iOS 16 adoption is very high this year compared to iOS 15 within the first 7 days. According to Mixpanel, who tracks software installs and more, iOS 16 accounted for 22.10% of users after 7 days. iOS 15 was only 16.87, but iOS 14 was higher at 30.70. So adoption is ramping up compared to iOS 15. Of course, you have those customizations, which are nice, and maybe that's the main reason. But either way, they seem to be speeding up compared to before. Now, iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max users have messaged me, and I've seen posted elsewhere, that CarPlay is causing them to not be heard properly if they start a phone call from CarPlay itself. I've heard from many of you that this is an issue, and then saw it reported online as well. So if you're using CarPlay and having that issue, it looks like everyone's aware of it at this point, and it probably will be fixed with a future software update. So unfortunately, it seems to be a problem that's well known at this point with the Pro and Pro Maxes. So if you're using CarPlay and you have one of the new devices, it could be an issue for you. Also, there's some additional issues where people are having issues with Spotlight search not working properly. So you'll see here, if we type in Apple and search, it searches right away for me. However, some people say this can take up to 10 seconds or just not load at all. So I've heard that from a few of you and also seen it online. Also, some users are reporting another larger issue with the display, where if the display is dimmed all the way down, in the darker areas of the display, it can actually flicker. Now, I haven't seen this, but we've had display issues in the past with green tint and red tint, so it's definitely something that hopefully can be addressed through software, but that's taken quite a while in the past, so hopefully it's something that's resolved quickly this time around. Also, some people are experiencing poor connectivity. Now, thankfully, I'm not seeing this myself, so if I turn off Wi-Fi, it will jump over to LTE or 5G, depending on what's available and what the stronger signal is, and I thankfully have not seen that with this version. My 14 Pro and Pro Max have actually been quite good on cellular connectivity this time around compared to the 13 Pro Max. So that's something that I'm grateful for, but not everyone's experiencing. Maybe it's on a different carrier, maybe it's somewhere else around the world, but thankfully for me, it's been good. But again, it's a problem for some users and something Apple needs to resolve. Also, excessive battery drain. Now, I've heard this from quite a few people depending on what they're doing. Some people have it, some don't. If you're using the always-on display, some people seem to have this issue, and they turn off the always-on display and it fixes it for them. I haven't noticed any excessive drain from that. And really, it's not a big problem for about half of users, but another half say that it's quite a big problem. So they're seeing excessive drain. What's causing it, we don't know. But again, Apple is aware and should be fixing it, hopefully. And also, users who installed iOS 16 continue to complain about battery life being greatly affected. Now, it's not everyone. Some people say it's much better. Other people say it's not. So if you go to my YouTube community poll, 8 days ago, I posted, how is everyone enjoying the changes in iOS 16? And some people say they love it, about 74%. Only 13% like the older versions. 9% didn't upgrade, and 4% don't like it at all. If you go through some of these comments, you can actually see that there's an experience where some people are having really bad experiences, whether that be bugs or battery life or anything else. So there's tons of comments, 772 comments. That's a pretty real-world sizable amount that we can check and see what the overall experience is like. And so some people are having it, some aren't. And you may have seen that stutter there when I went to slide up and it closed. I'm on iOS 16.1 betas, and that just happens sometimes. When I go into an app, slide out, sometimes it will stutter and then slide out altogether. So definitely some odd issues here and there. Also, one thing I wanted to mention, but I wouldn't necessarily disable, is the haptic keyboard. Apple has said that it does use additional power. They haven't said how much, but it's something that I personally like, so I'm going to keep it on. But if you go to their support document and scroll down, you'll see that it says turning on haptic or keyboard haptics might affect the battery life of your iPhone. So battery life overall, of course, when you're using the vibration motor or the haptic engine, as Apple calls it, it's going to use more power. Every time you're typing, it's moving that motor, and so it will use more power. So if battery is of the utmost concern to you, you may want to disable that by going into settings, going to sound and haptics, then going down to keyboard feedback, and then turning that back off if you want to. However, like I said, I like it. It's not causing an issue for me, so I'll keep it on for now. Now, weekly deals I did want to mention before we continue, and the first one has to do with AirPods Pro 2. They're already discounted on Amazon for about $10 off or so, and also there's discounts on AirPods Pro 1st Gen if you can still find them there. There's additional MacBook Pro deals, which are quite good, and also iPad deals. So I'll link all of those in the description. I update those every week in the news video, so be sure to check those out. Now, in Mark Gurman's Power On newsletter, he stated that he believes Apple may not have an October event, but rather announce its upcoming iPad and Mac refreshes in a press release. So instead of having a full-fledged event sometime in early or middle October, we may just have an overall press release. If Apple isn't doing major updates, this makes sense. However, there's still things we haven't seen yet that Apple said they're going to show soon, such as the Mac Pro. And I would think they'd want to show that in person. So we may see this in an event, or maybe not at all, and we'll just get iPad and Mac refreshes through press updates. So we could see that, and of course, as soon as I know, I'll let you know. We're also still waiting for Apple Music Classical, which has long been in the code, but yet to be announced by Apple since their acquisition of PrimePhonic. So that might be a whole new section or a separate app, as it appears, for your music listening for classical music. So we're still waiting for that. And we're also still waiting for iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura to launch. Again, those are expected around the times of new iPads. So once Apple clarifies that with either a press release or maybe an event invite, then we'll know when those should come out. But I would expect early to mid-October for that. Now, of course, we're still waiting for iOS 16.1 Beta 3 and following betas and then a future release. And based on the past couple of weeks, I would expect a release either after this video today, tomorrow, or Wednesday. Typically, that's when Apple will release them. We never know specific dates, as Apple doesn't state those. They just release the update. So we could see those very soon, and then maybe a Beta 4 the following week with maybe a final release or release candidate in the middle or late October. We don't know 100%, as Apple hasn't said yet, but once they announce maybe the new iPads along with iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura release dates, that's kind of when I would expect them to announce iOS 16.1. One feature we won't see in that, though, is Apple Pay Later. The Apple Pay Later service is in the Wallet app, where you can pay later if you purchase something with your Apple Card. You can set it up in payments and more, and that apparently is going to be delayed until 2023, according to Mark Gurman, and would be part of maybe iOS 16.4. How he would know the version specifically is hard to say, but this is due apparently to technical challenges, and it's not the first time Apple's pushed a feature way out in the release cycle, so we may not have that until next year. So if you wanted to split up payments, say for Christmas shopping, you want to purchase something and then split it up, unfortunately you won't be able to do that just yet, at least on the Apple Wallet app. iPhone 14 demand has been exceedingly strong this year. Apparently, it's been strong enough for Apple to bump up production of the Pro models, according to Ming-Chi Kuo. He's an analyst that looks at the overall supply chain, and that makes a lot of sense, as it seems to be there's very high demand, whether it be for purple or, in my opinion, the best color this year, space black. That's not available very easily. You have to wait some time to get it, so it seems like Apple needs to really ramp up production, and we should see more and more of those by the end of the year. They want to sell as many as they can before Christmas, so that makes sense that we'll see more of that coming very soon. Now, we're already hearing about the iPhone 15. Apple works on products 3 years ahead of time, so it makes sense that we hear a little bit about it, and we've already heard that the Dynamic Island would be on all iPhone 15 models next year. That makes a lot of sense, but apparently, according to Ross Young, it won't be with all of the high-end displays. So you'll have the high-end displays on the high-end models, with the 60 Hz display apparently still on the regular models. We'll have to wait and see. Also, we expect USB-C in iPhone 15, since Apple has to comply with a bunch of laws in the EU and maybe elsewhere. And then also, according to Mark Gurman, the Pro Max name may go away in favor of Ultra. We had the Apple Watch Ultra, we have the M1 Ultra, we could have the iPhone Ultra, according to Mark Gurman. And typically every 3 years, Apple fully redesigns their phones, so we could have a periscope zoom camera, a full redesign, of course, with a new port and more. Some people have said to expect it to be portless. I don't think they're going to do that. That may not comply with laws and regulations around the world, so I would expect them to have USB-C, which would be really nice for removing that high-end ProRes footage when you're recording video. So all of those things are expected, but again, we're a year away, so we'll have to wait and see. But we do know from the supply chain as Apple gets things ready. Now, Macs are expected to be refreshed with M2 Pro and M2 Max processors. Now, of course, Apple upgraded their Macs this year with the 13-inch MacBook Pro and the all-new MacBook Air with an M2 processor. Apple is expected to bump the specs in the MacBook Pro lineup with an M2 Pro and M2 Max option. So that makes sense that they would push that out through a press release. And then also next year, Mark Gurman is saying to expect a 15-inch MacBook Air. So we could see that updated to a larger size. Although maybe they would get rid of the 13-inch eventually and just have a couple smaller sizes with some larger Pro sizes as well. Of course, we're still waiting for an updated Mac Pro, and also Mark Gurman is saying to expect an all-new HomePod, a larger size HomePod in 2023. We're also expecting updated iPads. Now, what they're updating specifically is hard to say, but if it's just a processor improvement with maybe the new A16 or the M2 in the iPad Pro, that makes sense that they would just push it through a press release if they don't have any new sensors, such as when they introduce LiDAR or other things. So all of those, again, could be done through a press release. We also expect a new 10-inch iPad as well coming very soon that would look more like the iPad Air, but be without maybe the extra ports, maybe some additional features, but have the design overall and USB-C. All of those are expected very, very soon. So we should see that soon, and that's about everything for this past week. I'm looking forward to updated iOS versions and, of course, maybe some new iPads. Let me know what you're looking forward to in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, it will be linked in the description like it always is. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.